The boy wasn't crying when he said it. That was the thing that stopped Cole Drayden's horse cold in the middle of the road, not the words themselves, not even the fact that a child of maybe 10 was standing alone in the dust of the Cimarron trail at dusk with blood on his shirt. It was that his eyes were dry. Completely dry. The kind of dry that comes after crying has been used up, wrung out, spent, the face of someone who has passed through grief and come out the other side into something colder and more purposeful. "Sir," the boy said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't run toward the horse. He simply stood in the road and waited. The way a person stands when they have one card left and they know it. "If they come tonight, hide my sister. Please." Cole looked down at him from the saddle. The boy was Apache, maybe 10, maybe 11. Thin the way active children are thin, rather than the way hungry children are thin. Clean face, except for the dust of the trail. The blood on his shirt was not his own. Cole could see that from the pattern of it, not seeping, not fresh, the spatter of proximity rather than injury. Whoever had bled, it wasn't this boy. Not today. Behind him, just visible where the trail bent through a stand of juniper, a smaller shape sat in the shadow of a rock. A girl, younger, 7, maybe 8, watching Cole's horse with the absolute stillness of a child who has been told, "Whatever happens, do not move." Cole did not move either. "Who's coming?" he said. The boy's jaw tightened. Ridley's men. He said the name the way you say the name of a weather system, a fact, not a complaint. Something that arrives and does damage and doesn't care what you think about it. They came to our camp this morning, our uncle, a pause. One single pause, where the dry eyes flickered. Then the control came back. Our uncle told us to run. We ran. Cole looked at the blood on the shirt again. Read it differently now. "How many of Ridley's men?" he said. "I counted 4 horses. The boy held up 4 fingers, not because Cole couldn't count, but because he wanted Cole to understand he'd been careful enough to count. They were still at the camp when we left. But they'll track us. There's one who tracks." He said this last part with the flat specificity of someone who has seen the skill in action. "He won't lose us." Cole looked west, back the way he'd come. The sun was going, pulling the light out of the sky like a tablecloth being drawn off a table, fast at the end, faster than you expected, leaving the world suddenly much darker than it had been a moment before. He'd been riding to Morrow Springs. 2 days of hard road, a buyer waiting for the horses he was delivering, a payment that would clear half his outstanding debt to the Cimarron Cattleman's Bank. He was 2 hours from the Canyon Pass. If he turned around now, he lost daylight, possibly the pass, definitely the schedule. The buyer in Morrow Springs was not a patient man. He looked at the boy. The boy looked back and did not beg further and did not look away. He'd said what he had to say. The rest was not in his hands. That was what undid Cole Drayden. Not the blood, not the fear. The boy's understanding at 10 years old that there are moments when you've done everything you can and the outcome belongs to someone else's character, not your own effort. Cole had been that boy once. Not Apache, not orphaned young, not standing in a road at dusk, but the specific feeling, the math of it, 1 card left, someone else holding the answer. He knew that feeling from the inside, in a way he'd spent 20 years trying to forget. He stepped down from the saddle. "What's your name?" he said. "Kito," the boy said. "My sister is Wren." Cole Drayden. He tied his horse to a juniper branch. "Is she hurt?" "Her foot. She twisted it when we ran. She can walk, but not fast." A pause that cost him something. Not fast enough. Cole nodded. He went to his saddlebags and opened the left one, moving with the efficient economy of a man who had been doing things alone in difficult circumstances for long enough that he'd stopped narrating them even to himself. He took out the medical roll, cloth strips, a small tin of drawing salve, a bottle of diluted iodine. He'd bought it in Cimarron out of the habit of self-preservation. He was glad now that he had. He looked at Kito. "Bring her here," he said. "Let me look at the foot." The boy went to the juniper shadow and spoke quietly, and the girl came, limping, one hand braced on her brother's shoulder, her eyes on Cole with an expression that was not fear exactly, but the careful, thorough assessment of someone evaluating a situation before committing to it. She was small for 7. She had the same dry, watchful eyes as her brother. Cole crouched down to her level without reaching for the foot yet. He let her look at him. "I'm going to check your ankle," he said. "Does that seem all right?" She looked at Kito. He gave a small nod. She looked back at Cole and sat down in the dust and extended her foot. He examined it carefully. Swollen, bruising already darkening along the outer edge. Not broken, the bones moved correctly under his fingers, gently tested but badly sprained. She'd need rest she was not going to get tonight. He wrapped it tightly with cloth strips, and she did not make a sound, and when he was done she pulled her foot back and stood and tested it with the concentrated expression of someone running a diagnostic. "Better?" he said. "Some," she said. Her English was cleaner than he'd expected, precise and deliberate. "Thank you." Cole stood, looked east and west on the trail, made his decision in the same moment he'd been making it since the boy said, "Hide my sister." He just now admitted it to himself. "My ranch is 4 miles east," he said. "Old place. Solid walls, good sight lines, spring water." He looked at Kito. "Can she walk 4 miles if we go slow?" Kito looked at Wren. She looked back at him. "Yes," she said, before her brother could answer for her. Cole untied his horse. They started east, and the last of the daylight left the sky above them, and somewhere behind them, in the direction of the camp they'd come from, Cole thought he could hear, or imagined he could hear, the sound of men moving through scrub. He didn't let it show in his face. But he picked up the pace, just slightly. The ranch had not been a working ranch for 3 years. Cole had kept the bones of it, the stone house, the well, the barn that still held 2 stalls and a winter's worth of supplies, but the cattle were gone, sold off piece by piece after his partner Harlan died of fever, and left Cole alone with more land than one man could work, and a debt load that 2 men had barely been managing. He'd shifted to horse trading, which required a horse and a road and nothing else, which suited a man who had largely stopped requiring permanence from his surroundings. He brought them in through the barn first, not the house, habit, tactics, the instinct to show nothing from the outside until he knew what he was dealing with. He lit a single lantern, low, fed his horse, let the children rest while he moved to the small window above the hayloft and spent 5 minutes studying the dark western trail. Nothing yet. He came down. Kito was sitting with his back against the stall partition, his knees drawn up, watching the barn door with those ancient eyes. Wren had fallen asleep against him, her wrapped ankle extended. Her small face entirely relaxed in sleep in the way children's faces go. Age falls off them, the weight of what they've seen lifts, and you see only what they are underneath all of it, which is a child who should be dreaming about ordinary things. Kito watched Cole come down the ladder. "She'll sleep through most anything," he said quietly. "She gets like that when she's exhausted. Mama used to say she sleeps like she's decided to trust the world." A pause. "Mama said that was brave, not careless." Cole settled onto the barrel near the lantern. "Your mother," he said. 2 winters ago. Kito said it without flinching. The cold sickness. Half the camp got it. A pause. "That's when we came to live with our..." Cole looked at the boy, at the blood on his shirt that had dried to rust brown. "Your uncle told you to run," he said. Yes, he didn't come with you. Kito's jaw moved. He looked at Wren sleeping. He drew them away from us, he said carefully, so we could run without them seeing. Another pause, longer. He didn't move very fast. After last winter, his joints. He couldn't run. He stopped. Said the rest with his eyes rather than his voice. Cole looked at the barn floor. He'd been in situations, in the war and after, where someone had made that same trade. Drawn attention toward themselves and away from others. Given what they had left. He knew what that cost, and he knew what it asked of the ones who ran, the living with the carrying of someone else's final choice. He said, he was trying to get you safe. Yes, Kito said, that single syllable weighted with everything a boy shouldn't have to carry. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, tell me about Ridley. Kito took a breath. Carlton Ridley. He has land west of the Cimarron. About 3,000 acres he says is his. Some of it is. Some of it, our people have used the Eastern Canyon for 2 generations. The water there. The winter grazing. It was never Ridley's. He looked at Cole steadily. 2 months ago he started sending men to move us. At first they just came and stood there. Then they started taking things. Last month they burned the East Canyon camp. Nobody moved again. Sheriff Pratt says the land deed gives Ridley rights. Our uncle went to the land office in Cimarron. They said they would review it. Kito's expression shifted, something tired and old moving through it. They have been reviewing it for 6 weeks. Cole stood up. Went to the window. Still nothing on the western trail, but the tracker. Whoever he was would need darkness to slow him, and darkness wasn't going to stop him entirely. He thought about what he owed in this situation. The answer was straightforward in one direction. Nothing. Legally, formally, by any measure the county would recognize. He'd found 2 children on a road. He'd given basic aid. He could take them to Cimarron tomorrow and hand them to the land office and walk away, and that would be, by most measures, having done more than required. He thought about the buyer in Morrow Springs, about the debt payment, about the shape his life had gotten into since Harlan died, smaller and smaller, the circle of what concerned him drawn tighter every year, reduced now to horses and roads and debt ledgers, as if shrinking himself enough might make the world's harder edges stop finding him. He thought about a boy's dry eyes and 1 card left. He thought about an uncle who couldn't run fast enough. There's a lawyer in Cimarron, Cole said, turning from the window. Woman named Adler. She took the Mendez land case last spring. Won it. He looked at Kito. The Eastern Canyon, your uncle. Is there anyone who could witness what it's been used for? Ranchers? Traders? Anyone with a reason to know? Kito looked at him carefully. There's a man named Forsyth. He's run cattle past the canyon every autumn for 15 years. He always asked permission from our uncle. Always, he paused. Why are you asking? Because Ridley's deed might not be wrong exactly, Cole said. Land office deeds in this territory get drawn wide and vague on purpose by the men who benefit from vague. But traditional use rights, especially if there's witnesses, can challenge a deed in territorial court. It takes time. It takes a lawyer willing to take the case. Kito was very still. Why are you telling me this? Cole looked at him. Because you asked me to hide your sister, he said. That's what I'm doing. But hiding doesn't solve Ridley. It just delays him. People usually just delay, Kito said. Not bitterly, just observationally. I know, Cole said. I've been one of them. He went to the barn door and looked out at the dark trail, and what he saw made him step back immediately and reach for the rifle hanging beside the door. A light, far west. Moving, they'd found the trail faster than he'd calculated. Wake your sister, he said quietly. Don't make noise. Come to the house. Now Kito had Wren up and moving before Cole finished the sentence. Cole moved them to the house in 30 seconds flat. Back door, no lantern, Wren on his back because her wrapped ankle wouldn't take the pace he needed. She weighed almost nothing and held on without being asked, her arms around his neck and her face pressed to his shoulder with the trusting weightlessness of a child who has decided, in this specific moment, that this specific person is safe. He felt the trust of it like a hand around his chest. He set her down inside, shut and barred the back door, and moved to the front window. 3 lights, not one. They'd split, standard tracking formation, 2 flanking, 1 on the trail. Whoever was leading this knew what he was doing. The lights were still a quarter mile out, but moving at a pace that suggested confidence, not caution. They'd found the trail clearly, and they weren't worried about who might be at the end of it. That told Cole something about what Ridley's men thought of what they were doing. They weren't nervous. That was its own kind of danger. Men who were nervous made different calculations than men who were not. He turned from the window. In the near darkness of the kitchen, Kito stood with his hand on Wren's shoulder. Both of them were watching Cole with identical expressions, calm, assessing, waiting for information rather than reassurance. It struck him again, the quality in both of them, this learned composure that children should not have to learn. "There's a cellar," Cole said. "Under the kitchen. Trap door under the table." He moved the table himself, one-handed, iron legs scraping on stone. The trap door was solid wood, flush, invisible if the table was over it. He opened it. Stone steps going down into cool dark. Food stores down there, water barrel, lamp and matches on the 3rd step. He looked at Kito. "You'll hear everything through the floor. Don't come up. Whatever you hear, don't come up. Do you understand?" "Yes," Kito said. "No matter what." Kito looked at him for one moment, that reading look, calculating Cole's odds, calculating whether this was a promise or a goodbye. Then he helped Wren through the trap door and descended after her. Cole lowered the door, moved the table back over it, placed a chair over the seam for good measure. Then he lit the kitchen lamp, one lamp, normal, the light of a man home for the evening, and put on the coffee pot and sat at the table with the rifle across his knees and waited. They knocked. 4 hard knocks, which was not a request. It was a notification. Cole opened the door. 4 men. The one in front was lean and weathered, with a tracker's flat, quiet eyes that moved over Cole in the first second and cataloged him before settling. Behind him, 3 others spread in the yard, not bunched together, placed deliberately. Spread so that watching one meant not watching another. Professional, Ridley spent money on this. Evening, the tracker said. His name, Cole would learn later, was Decker. "We're looking for 2 Indian children came off the Cimarron trail. Seen anything?" "Rode in an hour ago," Cole said. "Saw nothing on the trail." Decker's eyes moved past Cole into the kitchen. One slow survey. The lamp, the table, the coffee, the rifle on Cole's knees. "You always answer the door with a rifle?" he said. "Man alone, dark country, 4 strangers knock at night," Cole said. "Seems like the reasonable choice." Something that might have been amusement moved through Decker's expression. He was good at this, at the conversation within the conversation, at reading what wasn't said. "These children are wards of Carlton Ridley," Decker said. "Their guardian. He's responsible for their welfare. Apache children," Cole said, "don't generally come under Ridley's guardianship. That's a creative description of whatever he thinks he's doing." The amusement left. "I'm going to need to search your property. You're going to need a county warrant for that," Cole said. "I have authorization from Mr. Ridley. Mr. Ridley is not the county," Cole said, "or the territory, or any court I recognize." He kept his voice level and his rifle across his knees and his eyes on Decker. "You want to search my property? Ride to Cimarron. Get Sheriff Pratt to write you a warrant. Bring it back. I'll be here." Decker was very still. He was reading Cole the way Cole was reading him, both of them professionals at this specific thing, both understanding that the next 30 seconds would determine whether this was a conversation or something else. Cole heard it before he saw it, the soft scrape of a boot on his left side, where one of the three men had drifted closer to the house wall, angling toward the side window, moving while Decker held his attention. Cole stood up from the chair, slow, unhurried, and turned slightly left, so that he could see both Decker and the man at the wall simultaneously, and he said, "Tell your man by the window to step back into the yard." Decker held for 1 second. Then, "Step back, Marsh." The man by the window stepped back. "Here's what's going to happen," Cole said. He was speaking now not just to Decker, but to all four of them, loud enough to carry. "Tomorrow morning, I'm riding to Cimarron. I'm going to speak to a lawyer about Ridley's deed on the Eastern Canyon, and about a man named Forsyth who's wintered cattle past that canyon for 15 years with the full knowledge of the Apache camp there. I'm going to speak to the land office about a review that's been pending 6 weeks. He paused. "And I'm going to speak to the territorial marshal's office about tonight. Because what you're doing, hunting Apache children after whatever happened to their uncle this morning, that's not a property dispute. That's a federal matter." The word federal landed like a stone in still water. He saw the ripples move through all four of them. Decker's jaw worked. He was a man who was good at his job, and his job tonight had just gotten complicated in ways Ridley hadn't briefed him for. "You're making a mistake," Decker said. "I've made bigger ones," Cole said. "Good night." He shut the door. He stood with his back against it, listening, rifle up, counting silently. 30 seconds. A full minute. Then, finally, the sound of horses turning and moving away, east towards Cimarron, not back the way they'd come. Cole waited 5 full minutes before he moved the table. He opened the trap door. Below, in the lamplight, Kito sat with his arm around Wren, who was awake and listening, and both of them looked up at him through the opening. "Federal matter," Kito said. He'd heard every word through the floor. "Yes," Cole said. A pause. "Is it? Truly?" Cole looked at him. Hunting children after killing an elder in territorial jurisdiction with Apache treaty implications? He held out his hand to help Wren up. "By the time I'm done describing it to the right people, yes, it will be." Kito looked at him for a long moment. Then he took Cole's outstretched hand and let himself be pulled up. They stayed the night. There was no other reasonable option. Wren's ankle needed rest, and the dark outside was still Ridley's country until dawn changed the arithmetic, but Cole was aware that staying the night was a different thing than giving aid on a road. It was harder to walk away from people you'd made coffee for. Harder to return to the small circle of your own concerns after you'd sat at a table with them and heard them breathe and watched a child sleep. He told himself he was aware of this and therefore accounted for it. He made food, dried beef and beans and the hard biscuits he carried in the saddlebag, and the three of them ate at the kitchen table with the lamp turned low, and nobody spoke much during the eating. Wren ate with the thorough, serious attention of someone doing important work. She cleaned her bowl and looked at Cole and said, "May I have more?" With the formal precision of a child who has been taught manners despite everything manners have to compete with, he gave her more. She ate that too. After, Kito helped Cole wash the bowls without being asked, which was a thing Cole noticed and said nothing about. Wren found the corner of the kitchen where a braided rug covered the stone floor and sat on it cross-legged and looked at Cole's bookshelf. 3 books, worn. The kind of books a man reads over and over rather than collecting widely. She pulled her knees up and wrapped her arms around them and studied the spines with the focused expression of someone reading a language they almost know. "You can take one down," Cole said. She did, the middle one, a collection of natural observations, illustrated, the kind of book that worked as well without reading as with it. She opened it and turned pages with her index finger, studying each image with the same thoroughness she'd applied to the beans. Kito watched her. "She wants to be a healer," he said quietly to Cole. "She remembers everything she sees. Everything, since she was small." He paused. "Our uncle used to say she had the seeing mind, that it was medicine in itself, the ability to look at something and understand it completely." His voice went careful around his uncle's name, the way you carry something breakable. He would have known what to do about Ridley. He always knew which tool fit which problem. Cole turned his coffee cup in his hands. "What was his name?" "Anu," Kito said it simply. "Let it sit. He was my father's brother. He raised us after our mother died because that's what you do. You don't leave people." He looked at Cole across the table. He told us that many times. You don't leave the ones who need you, even when it costs something, even when it costs everything. The boy's voice was steady. The dry eyes had stayed dry through everything. And then, without warning, without any transition Cole could have predicted, one single tear tracked down the left side of his face. Just one. And Kito didn't wipe it, just let it go, and sat very still. Cole looked at the table. He didn't offer comfort, because there was none to offer that was honest, and Kito was not a boy who would have received dishonest comfort gracefully. Instead, he got up and went to the shelf behind the stove and took down a small tin box he'd kept for 3 years without quite knowing why, without being able to make himself throw away. He set it on the table. Inside was a photograph, stiff card paper, slightly water-damaged on one corner. 2 men, young, one of them Cole 20 years ago. The other man had his arm around younger Cole's shoulders and was grinning, and younger Cole was not grinning, but was leaning slightly into the contact the way you lean into the weight of someone you trust. "That's Harlan," Cole said. "My partner. He died 3 years ago." Kito looked at the photograph. At the grinning man. "He looks like someone who could find the funny thing in anything," he said. "He could," Cole said. It was maddening sometimes. He paused. Mostly it was the thing I needed most that I didn't know how to do myself. Kito looked at him with the reading look, and when he died, he said, "You stopped." Cole was quiet for a moment. "I stopped most things," he said. "Became very efficient, very small." "Our uncle said that grief is what happens when someone takes a piece of your future with them," Kito said. He said the only way through it was to build more future, more than they took. A pause. He was better at saying things than I am at remembering them exactly, but that was the shape of it. Cole looked at the photograph. Then he looked at Wren, who had fallen asleep on the braided rug with the illustrated book open on her chest, rising and falling with her breathing, the images of plants and stones and birds resting against her heartbeat. Something moved in his chest, not quite pain, not quite its opposite, something that had been still for 3 years, starting to move again the way frozen water moves at thaw, slowly, irresistibly, with a sound like something breaking open. He reached into the tin and removed something else. A small brass compass, the kind a surveyor uses. With an inscription on the back in small letters, "Find North H," he turned it in his hands once. Then he held it out to Kito. The boy looked at it without taking it. That was his, he said. He'd have said, "Find where you need to go, and then go there," Cole said, without looking for permission first. He set it on the table between them. "I'm riding to Cimarron at first light. I'm going to see Adler, the lawyer. I'm going to find Forsyth and ask him to make a statement. I'm going to go to the territorial marshal and describe what happened to Hanu with enough specificity that it can't be filed and forgotten." He looked at Kito steadily. "None of that is guaranteed to work. The law in this territory is," complicated, but it's the right tool for this problem. You understand the difference? Kito looked at the compass. Hanu would have understood, he said. I think he did, Cole said. He sent you to the road. He trusted that someone would come. Kito picked up the compass, held it, looked at the needle find its direction. North, he said quietly. North, Cole agreed. Outside, the desert night had gone fully quiet, the dangerous listening quiet that sits at the bottom of the dark hours before the world begins again. Inside the kitchen, the lamp burned low and steady, and Wren breathed on her braided rug, and the compass needle held its line. Cole rode to Cimarron before sunrise. He rode hard, not the careful, conserving pace of the delivery man he'd been 2 days ago, but the direct, committed pace of someone who has decided what direction matters and is done deliberating. His horse felt the difference. Horses always do. He went to Adler first, at her home office on Cimarron's north end, and knocked at 7 a.m. without apology. She answered in her work clothes, which told him she'd already been up. She was 50, compact, with reading glasses pushed up into iron-gray hair, and the expression of someone permanently assessing whether the person in front of her was wasting her time. He spoke for 11 minutes. She asked 4 questions: precise, specific, cutting, and then she said, Forsyth. You said he's been using that canyon route for 15 years with the Apache camp's knowledge. That's what the boy told me. If he'll swear to it in writing, and if the land office review is as delayed as you say, that delay is itself actionable. Administrative obstruction in a treaty-adjacent case. She looked at him over her glasses. Do you have any idea what Carlton Ridley's deed actually covers? Specifically? No, I do, she said. I looked at it in August when the Cimarron cases started connecting. His deed gives him the high plateau west of the canyon. The canyon itself is ambiguous, drawn wide on purpose. She pulled the glasses down, wide enough to challenge. It's been 6 months since anyone tried. She paused. Because nobody who could do it was willing to. Cole looked at her. I'm willing, he said. I know, she said. You already started. That's different from willing. She took the case on a contingency arrangement, no fee unless the challenge succeeded. Cole didn't ask what had changed her mind. He suspected it was the same thing that had been changing his mind since a dry-eyed boy stood in a road at dusk and waited. He found Forsyth at his ranch outside Cimarron, a stubborn, leathery man of 60 who listened to Cole's account with his arms crossed and his jaw working, and then said, Hanu helped me pull a calf out of a snowbank in the winter of '79. I've traded with that camp every autumn for 16 years. His jaw tightened. They burned the East Canyon camp? Yes, and Hanu? Cole said what he knew, which wasn't enough, but was honest. Forsyth uncrossed his arms. Where do I sign? He said. He went to the territorial marshal's office last. The marshal on duty, a young man named Varga, who was newer than the furniture and clearly understood that he worked for the territory and not for Carlton Ridley, listened to Cole's account of the previous night and the morning's events at the camp, and wrote for a long time, and then said, I'm going to need to ride to the Hanu campsite to assess what happened. I'll take you, Cole said. I'll also need to speak to the children. They're at my ranch, Cole said. Varga looked at him. You brought them home. Yes, knowing that Ridley's men would come. Yes, Varga capped his pen. Looked at Cole with the assessing expression of a man trying to understand the motivations of another. Then he said, All right. Carlton Ridley was served with a temporary restraining order on the Eastern Canyon access 2 weeks later, pending the territorial court's review of the deed boundaries. It was not a victory, not yet. It was a door held open long enough for the real process to begin. Adler filed the formal challenge in November. Forsyth gave testimony in December. A surveyor hired by the territorial court spent 3 weeks in January measuring what Ridley's deed actually covered, versus what he'd claimed it covered, and the findings were, quietly, legally, without drama, significantly different. The case ran 7 months. Cole attended every session that was open to the public. He sat in the back of the territorial courtroom in his one good coat, which had belonged to Harlan, which still fit well enough, and he listened to Adler work with the methodical, inexorable momentum of a woman who had been waiting for someone to start the clock running. The deed challenge succeeded in the late spring. The Eastern Canyon was ruled a traditional use corridor, not Apache-owned in the new legal sense, which was its own injustice that would take longer to address, but protected from Ridley's enclosure by a combination of Forsyth's testimony, the survey findings, and a territorial precedent that Adler had found in a land case from 1868 and carried like a weapon since August. Carlton Ridley paid a substantial fine for the burning of the East Canyon camp. He paid it through his lawyers, without appearing in court, without admitting what had happened to Hanu, which was the part that cost the most to accept. Decker, the tracker, was charged federally for his actions the night of the camp, based on Varga's investigation. He accepted a plea arrangement and left the territory. It wasn't complete justice. Cole had stopped expecting complete justice sometime around the 3rd year of the war. But it was the available justice, and it was real, and it was built to last. Kito and Wren stayed at Cole's ranch through the spring and into the summer, not because they had nowhere else to go, but because the camp was rebuilding and the elders had asked for time, and because Wren's ankle healed, but her interest in Cole's illustrated natural history books did not, and because Kito had begun, on his own initiative, to understand the paper system, the deeds and documents and territorial filings, with the concentrated ferocity of someone learning the language of the force that had been used against them. Cole taught him what he knew, which was less than Kito needed, so Cole took him to Adler, who recognized immediately what she was looking at and began teaching him in earnest. In the summer, the camp rebuilt and the time came, and Kito and Wren returned to their... The morning they left, Kito stood at Cole's gate with the brass compass in his hand. He held it out. Cole looked at it. "That's yours now," he said. "I know," Kito said. "I'm giving it back." He waited until Cole took it. "Because you still need it. You found north again. I watched you. But I think you need the reminder." He held Cole's gaze with the old calm certainty. "Don't get small again." Cole closed his hand around the compass. Wren was already on the trail, turned back to look at him over her shoulder, one small hand raised. Not quite a wave, more like the acknowledgement of an equal from someone who had decided, at 8 years old, exactly who she was going to be in the world. Cole raised his hand. He watched them until the trail bent through the junipers and they were gone, and the morning opened up around him, wide and high and blue, the Cimarron country at its best, which was considerable. He stood at his gate for a while. Then he put the compass in his pocket and went to saddle his horse. He had a delivery to make, new contract, fair buyer, a route that took him south through country he hadn't ridden in years. He rode out at a pace that was not careful or small. He did not look back. Years later, in the territorial law office that bore her name, Wren of the Cimarron, as she was known, the first Apache woman licensed to practice in the New Mexico territory, there was a single object on the corner of her desk that she never moved and never explained. A brass compass. If new clients asked about it, she said only that it had belonged to a man who taught her that the right tool, used at the right time, by someone willing to stop being careful, could hold a door open long enough for justice to walk through. Then she opened their case file and went to work.